Hello and welcome to our Tuesday night live. This is becoming a regular occurrence, so welcome. I'm going to just wait a couple of minutes for people to get logged in. So if you're here, give me a hashtag live and let me know where you are tuning in from. And if you're watching this on replay later on in the week, give me a hashtag replay so that I can see who's watching it. Any comments as we go through? I'm not totally confident in my ability to find and see comments, but I will try my best. I have got my laptop open, so I'm hoping that I will see my comments coming on. So as you're getting logged in, hashtag live if you're watching live and hashtag replay if you're watching this on replay. And our topic this evening is about assessment and speech and language therapy assessment and what to expect. I'm hanging around in lots of groups, I'm seeing lots of questions about what to expect and people not feeling quite sure about assessments afterwards, so I thought it'd be a really good topic to cover this evening. And I also know that lots of people have to wait a long time for assessments, and there's a lot of anticipation about that, so I thought that we'd talk about that as well. So I'm talking from the UK. I've been a speech and language therapist in the NHS for 20 years, so I've done a fair bit of assessing in my time and in lots of different situations. So I'm talking from the UK. I know there's people that log into this from lots of different areas, lots of different countries, and so it's possible that it's slightly different from where you're coming from, but let me know, comment in the box and let me know if it's different where you are. Hi Lisa and hi Jude, thanks for watching. I'm getting a little bit of some notifications of people logging on, so that's brilliant. So hashtag live if you're watching live, hashtag replay if you're watching in replay. So let's crack on. I've broken it down, and I'm going to start by talking about where a speech and language therapy assessment might take place. And that can vary depending on your child. So lots of people make a decision based on referral information or what information they already have about your child. So it might be that a GP is referred, or a health visitor, or if you've referred the child yourself, or you might have rang a private provider and given some information over the phone. And that you will find that maybe a decision is made at that stage as to where to assess. So for some people, assessment might happen in a clinic situation, so the child will go along to a room where the speech therapist is seeing a series of children, so they might see 6 or maybe 8 children in a day, one after the other, and you would go in and have that assessment. For other children, it might be that the assessment happens in school or in nursery, or maybe even in your own home or in a child development centre, just depending on your child's difficulty and the service that happens in your area. And I think, it's very different what assessment can happen, and a very different way to kind of prepare for that assessment. So we'll talk about that a little bit more detail in a minute. So the next thing is who will assess your child. So generally, if it's a speech and language therapy assessment, it will be a speech and language therapist who will do that assessment. And lots of areas choose some of their more senior therapists to do assessment because that's the more difficult part. So it might not be the speech therapist that you end up seeing later on, but it'll be somebody within the department who's very experienced at assessing children. But for sometimes it might be a speech and language therapy assistant that does that first interaction and will take notes to discuss with the speech therapist. So particularly around nursery visits or school visits, you might find that it's not a fully qualified speech language therapist, but an assistant who will give information to the team. And in some cases it's a multidisciplinary team, and that's very often the case if children have complex difficulties, or if they have feeding difficulties, or if they're going to look at the child in terms of an autistic spectrum type difficulty, because it's really important to get a really broad perspective from lots of different professionals. So you might find that it's a multi-professional assessment, but you should be made aware of that in any literature that you get beforehand. And how does a speech therapist assess your child? So that's a question that comes up quite a lot, and I often hear people say, well, she just played with him, she didn't really seem to do anything. But as you can imagine, if you're seeing somebody who's very experienced, they've seen lots and lots of children, and spending time with your child, talking to you, asking you questions, and even just observing your child in the room is enough for them to make that assessment, or that very early stages of assessment, to know what needs to be done next. So don't be put off if you feel that the therapist hasn't got out a book and kind of done something very formal and ticked and crossed like you would imagine an assessment to be, because a lot of speech therapists are very skilled in observation and watching the child and seeing what they're doing. So in a nursery situation, for example, you might find that the therapist stands back and doesn't interact with the child, but what she's doing is she's watching what your child's doing, watching who they're playing with, how they're interacting, what they're seeing, and so it might feel as though the therapist is a bit hands-off, but actually she's getting lots and lots of information. It might be that for some difficulties, the speech language therapist will do a formalised assessment, and there's lots and lots of assessments within speech therapy, and different therapists prefer different assessments, and also different assessments are suitable for different children. So, you know, you might speak to somebody who had a certain assessment and then that doesn't happen for your child, but that will be gleaned by the speech therapist early on as to whether that assessment is suitable for your child. But if you know of assessments, you know, bring that up with the therapist and say, wow, I know about this assessment, is that something that's suitable for my child? I think one of the things that I feel really strongly about is that parents often feel a little bit disempowered by the process, and they'll go into situations and something will happen and they'll come out and they've got more questions than when they went in. And it's really important to engage with the speech language therapist and ask questions, ask why they're doing things, ask what they've noticed. Because, you know, especially in a clinic situation where you're seeing lots and lots of children, you know, you're taking in all this information and you might just forget to say it, but there's absolutely no reason not to ask the speech therapist what they're thinking. So absolutely make sure you do that. And so what you want to make sure is that the speech therapist gets a really good understanding of your child, and you would expect to have some kind of questionnaire, a case history that might have been sent to you beforehand, or it might be completed on the day. You know, you want the speech therapist to be asking about your child's developmental history, birth, pregnancy, the other people in the family, your parents' experience. So, you know, a really comprehensive questionnaire about how things have been up until this point. And you would want to. Hi Stephanie, sorry, I just saw your comment there, a bit distracted, but I know that's absolutely fine. And so, yeah, you want the speech therapist to get a really good view of kind of things that have been going on for you. You want the speech and language therapist to have considered lots of different areas of your child's development, and it's really worth knowing what these are and asking them. So, you know, asking what do you think about his attention and listening? What do you think about her play? What do you think about interaction? Have you looked at a comprehension? Where do you think that's at? What do you think about her oral motor skills? I'm worried about her feeding. Do you think that this is impacting on her speech and language? You know, has she got a tongue tie? What is her expressive language? Are her expressive language and her comprehension at a similar level? And all these questions are going to make sure that you kind of come away with a really good understanding of your child's difficulty. As I'm saying this, I'm wondering whether actually it would be really useful to have a list of those questions to take along with you to a speech and language therapist, so that, you know, you're armed with those questions to ask. Because I know as a speech and language therapist, if someone was sat there asking me, I'd find that really useful, because you know, it would prompt me and remind me to tell you about all those areas. And also, as a parent, you'll come out armed with kind of the answer to all of those things. And so, if you want that, you know, give me a heart or a like or a thumbs up in the text box, and I'll make sure that I do that after this live and let you have it. That's no problem. If your child is a child who's got difficulty learning language, and a child who has got interaction difficulties, it will be very play-based, the assessment, and you would want the speech and language therapist to be playing alongside or watching you play with your child in order to do that assessment. If your child's got difficulties with speech sounds, you would expect that to be a more formal assessment, and there's lots of different assessments that assess speech sounds and be able to tell you which speech sounds are difficult and in which order those need working, whether it's within normal limits or whether there's some sounds that your child could do with a little bit of help with. So depending on the difficulty depends on what to expect in terms of what the assessment is. And at the end of that assessment, you want to feel as though you've got a was aware of I was only aware of what parents were saying to me. It's been really interesting to watch what parents are saying to each other, and a lot of what comes up is this feeling of not really getting it and not really understanding where their child's strengths and weaknesses are and what it is that's going to help their child. And I've probably said before in the live, but one of the things is that, you know, a lot of what your child needs, you've got. You've got it. You know, your child needs you, but needs a skilled you. Needs you to have all those skills in order to support their communication. And, you know, lots of people do speech and language therapy in a room with a speech therapist, going through exercises. And although for some children that is really important, for lots of children, especially in these early stages of learning to talk, it's got to be natural, it's got to be within the environment, it's got to be with the parents. And so you need to get equipped, and you need to have those skills and know what those strategies are and which ones are going to really help your child. I'm working on an online program, and you know, if anybody was interested in that, I'd be more than happy. And I'm going to do some video analysis and give you the strategies that your child needs, and then give them to you in bite-sized chunks that you can nip on the computer, 5 minutes, learn a strategy, and then go and implement it. So, you know, look out for that coming. But speech and language therapists will do that, but don't think that you're being shortchanged. Don't think that, you know, that is secondary to what your child needs. It's absolutely not. You have got everything your child needs, and I think sometimes that's not necessarily communicated to you, and it feels as though you need this outside help to support your child. You need to know, and you need to be skilled up, and you need to learn the skills, but absolutely you can do this. And that's what it's all about here, kind of empowering parents to feel like they're their child's best therapist, because you definitely are. So we've covered assessment. Very happy to give you some questions to ask and some areas to kind of take in and for you to be armed with when going to an appointment. So, you know, PM me if you would like those. And I think if you've seen, we're going to try and work in themes and build up these lives and build up the information that I'm giving you in a more logical order. I have in the week lots of ideas. I'm like, oh, I could do this for a live, but I think if I could have it in a more logical order, people are going to feel like their skills are building up. So watch out. This week we're talking about assessment, and then next week we'll start to talk about some of the other areas. So I'll let you know next week what that's going to be. Feel free to PM me. Lots of people are sending me videos and questions, and I'm really happy to answer those and to help as best I can. So, you know, reach out if you need some help, and I'm more than willing. And if you think that you would like to work with me on a one-to-one basis, you know, we can have a call about that and see about what I can do to support you more directly. So, you know, feel free to reach out for that as well. I hope that's been useful. If you've got any friends that have children with speech and language difficulties, invite them into this group, and let's all support each other. Thanks very much. Bye bye.